Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, organic functional groups. I mentioned them in passing when we were talking about aromatics and benzene. What in the world are functional groups? There seems to be an awful lot of them based on this slide. We're not going to have to worry about all of them. I mean, if you continue in organic chemistry, you will have to worry about all of these and more. But at the moment, you don't have to. We're only going to look at a few select ones that are very important and some that are probably very interesting to your average student. But let's take a look. Overview. Up until now, we've spoken about substituents of more carbon, but organic chemistry also involves oxygen and nitrogen. So we already have our answer. We've had situations where we attach more carbon to a chain or more carbon to a ring, but now we're going to be attaching oxygen and nitrogen. We did see that a little ways back. We saw with coffee and with chocolate, we saw the existence of nitrogen and oxygen all attached into the ring itself. So, now we're going to be able to take a look at things in terms of this on aliphatic and aromatic chains. Sorry, aromatic rings and aliphatic chains. There we go. We call repeating structures of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon-hydrogen functional groups because they basically make the hydrocarbon function differently. It's kind of named what it does, just like every time. Functional groups have consistent structures that we can use to classify them into groups or families. Oh, it's nice when we can do that again, just like a periodic table. If you understand the behavior of a particular functional group, you will know a great deal about the general properties of that class of compounds. So, if we understand the basic head of the family, we know what everyone in the family is going to do. Here we go. The leading families for organic compounds are this primary master list. All right, we've got our methane. Okay, that's our base one. This is the base. Methyl alcohol. Okay, alcohol just came up. Formaldehyde. Formic acid. Ethyl formate. Acetamide. Methylamine. Acetone. Diethyl ether. All of these are different compounds, and they can see them. Hydrocarbon, alcohol, aldehyde, acid, ester, amide, amine, ketone, ether. These are the key ones. We're not going to go through all of these. We're going to go through those. Scared you for a second, didn't I? You were like, oh, the title slide for this is so big. Oh no, this one's still so big. Now we're only doing 3. We're doing 3, that's it. You guys are fine, we're doing 3. Okay? I know, I'm the worst. All right, let's take a look. First of all, I want you guys to identify. Take some time, use the list on the other page. Can you identify what type of compounds are these? Right? You've got a set of them, 10 of them in total. I want you to try figuring it out. It says here it's on page 39 of your book. I want you to figure out what these are. I'm drawing it out. I'm taking some time. I want you to pause the video, try to identify them. Here we go. Here's the answers. Boom. Color-coded. Oh, the things we can do when we don't have to do black and white printing. In every case, we are looking for key identifying features. Right? So this one and this one are alcohols because they have OH. This one is not an alcohol because while it does have an OH, it has a double bonded O as well. So we can see here that's going to be an acid. Same with this one down here. We've only got 1 of the esters way over there. We've got 2 of everything else. Oh no, we've only got 1 ether as well. Okay. Ester, ether looked almost the same, right? Except this one here does not have the same double bonded O that this guy does. All right, so that's the basics.
Mr. Friedman, could you come to the office, please? Mr. Friedman, to the office.
All right, so that's the basics. Moving on. Let's take a look at the one that everyone's always so curious about, alcohol. Organic alcohols contain the hydroxyl group, OH. We've seen hydroxide. That's part of our covalent compounds. That was our no, that wasn't even a covalent. That was a polyatomic ion. Well, here it is again. They are neither acidic nor basic. The names of this family are formed from the alkane base. So the E ending is substituted with the suffix OL. This means that methane becomes methanol. Just like that. In a lot of ways, what we're doing is we're just sort of like squeezing an oxygen in here, right? Like if I cover this part up, that looks the same as the methane above. So we're just adding in that extra oxygen. We're sort of squeezing it in there. Nothing is really changing. Alcohols are similar to alkanes with one hydrogen atom replaced by an OH. There we go, we just covered that. The molecular formula, we write it in this form here. We could write it as CH4O, but we put it as an OH at the end because that tells the person who's reading this that this is an alcohol, because the OH by itself is important enough to mention. Organic chemists do that all the time. They take the basic rules of formula writing from ionic and covalent compounds and they change it to include other things. Okay. Now, because I know you guys are going to be super interested in alcohol, we're going to talk about it in a little more detail. Methanol is used to make compound formaldehyde, and from there you get plastics, medicine, and explosives. So it's one of those starting materials. Methanol is highly toxic and causes blindness, nerve damage, and death if you get it inside of you. Methanol is produced from carbon monoxide and hydrogen. We're going to see this with all of the alcohols. Broadly speaking, every single alcohol is poison. One of them is slow poison. The others are fast poison. Yes, all of them. Yes, even the one that people drink. We'll get to that. Methanol is the simplest of the alcohols, and it is incredibly dangerous. The next one is propanol. We're skipping one here, right? 1 to 3. Why are we skipping one? You'll see. Propanol, used as a solvent and often called rubbing alcohol to remind you not to drink it. Propanol is toxic, causing loss of consciousness and respiratory failure. So they all basically do the same thing. They damage parts of your brain. The methanol damages the nerves that connect your eyes to the rest of your brain, so that means that you lose the ability to see. The propanol does not damage those nerves. Instead, they damage the nerves that are in the brain stem that control your lungs. So your lungs stop working and you suffocate. I know, just great fun. Many of the hand sanitizers that we are dealing with on a regular basis, if they are peroxide-based, that's different, but if they're alcohol-based, they're usually not made of an alcohol that you can drink. They're usually made of this one. So if you try to drink the hand sanitizer, which I do not recommend, it causes you to go blind and then die. On the plus side, you can't catch the plague if you're dead. On the downside, you're dead. So please don't. All right, let's get to the one everyone actually cares about. Ethanol. Mostly used to make alcoholic beverages, but it is also an organic solvent for making diethyl ether, chloroform, acetic acid, perfumes, dyes, and synthetic rubber. Yes, even rubber. You know that stuff on the bottom of your shoes? It's probably not from a rubber tree anymore. We used to actually get rubber from trees. No, now we figured out how to make it synthetically from oil and from ethanol. So ethanol is, of course, ethane with an OH attached to the end. So if I very quickly sketch it down here, it's going to look something like this. Every single type of alcohol that you drink, every single type of alcohol that adults might drink is ethanol. Doesn't matter what it is. Wine, beer, whiskey, gin. Take a name of any type of alcoholic beverage, it is made of ethanol. That is the only type that humans can drink and not immediately die. We only die slowly and at great lengths, often in great pain. Ethanol is somewhat toxic. This is why drinking too much feels bad. You were poisoned. A hangover that you see in the movies, and of course have never experienced. A hangover is the result of being poisoned. It hurts because your body survived the poisoning. Yes, that's what we do. Humans are weird. At lethal levels, it causes the same respiratory failure, hypothermia, and nerve damage. Basically, it's halfway between propanol and methanol. So it causes nerve damage to the optic nerve and a few other nerves in the body. It eventually leads to the shutdown of the lungs, and they no longer inhale oxygen. This is what we call alcohol poisoning. Doesn't matter what type of alcohol it is, it's still bad. Ethanol is made from fermenting yeast with cane sugar. Basically, the yeast particles, the yeast organisms, consume the sugar, and as a waste product, they pee out alcohol, specifically ethanol, which means that alcoholic beverages are the pee of yeast, give or take. They're a waste product of yeast, just like pee is a waste product of humans. The yeast enzyme invertase breaks the sucrose into two isometric sugars, glucose and fructose. Other enzymes remove carbon dioxide from the sugar to produce the alcohol itself. So the net result of this is that for whatever reason, humanity has decided that we are weird and we will drink literal poison for fun. Now, different cultures, different religions have different opinions on alcohol consumption and the general behavior. A general trend in the Western world is the assumption that when you are old enough to drink, which depending on where you are is either 18 or 21, there is a culture of drinking heavily, especially in relation to certain sporting events or things. Because alcohol is a poison, because it is a toxic substance, it will affect your body in a variety of ways. It interferes with your brain chemistry a bit. It causes difficulties focusing, difficulties processing information, because it interferes with your brain. And with enough of it, it will cause permanent damage of some form. Now, ethanol that is prepared for consumption is a very low percentage. So most of an alcoholic beverage is water, because water is good and ethanol is poison. Beer, for example, might be anywhere between 2 to 5%. Wine might be as high as 15%, but 12, 15%, but we don't get that high. We really can't, right? And of course, very strong drinks have got more alcohol versus water. Again, by itself, ethanol is not necessarily a good thing to drink. The question might arise, then why do we drink it at all? Why in the world are we drinking poison? Well, historically, at certain times, it was actually beneficial. Sort of. Before we understood the germ theory of disease, which we're really using right now, being able to have drinking water that was clean was tricky. Cholera, one of the leading causes of death among humans, is caused by poop getting mixed in with drinking water. The fact that this is one of the leading causes of death among humans for most of human history should tell you an awful lot about our ability to keep things organized and clean. Alcohol, by definition, is a poison, not just to us, but to many organisms. So a certain amount of alcohol in some kind of a fluid that you're drinking means that there is less likely to be something living in that particular beverage. So drinking alcohol allowed people the opportunity to drink water that was clean. You could accomplish the same thing by drinking, say, tea or coffee, where you boil the water first. At least that will kill any organic or living bacteria or viruses, but it won't stop any kind of inorganic toxins like the Romans had with lead poisoning. But the general thing is that alcohols were useful in that way. There also is a social aspect. It also demonstrates the affluence of your society, that you have the ability to set aside some of the food material that you would normally eat in order to make alcohol. So there are many cultural and valuable purposes of this, but there is, of course, a big downside, which is drinking too much of it because it's slow-acting poison. So you never want to drink too much if you can help it. Now, of course, obviously, free country, you guys, once you are old enough, may do as you wish. But there are downsides to these kind of things, and it's important for you to at least understand the fundamentals of how this works. All of the alcohols do the same thing. The question is merely the speed at which they do it and the severity. Methanol and propanol, always toxic immediately. Ethanol is toxic in large doses, which, generally speaking, you shouldn't hit unless you're going particularly excitable. Yeah, let's go with that. You'd have to be trying real hard. Some people still reach it. Hospitals do have people who are going through alcohol poisoning that they have to treat. It's not fun. But that is what it is. Again, different cultures have different approaches to it. The Western world does have this tendency towards sort of assuming that kids who get old enough are going to drink a lot of it. It's a very, very common assumption. It still depends on what culture you're from and what you're used to. Other cultures are going to be used to, like, don't drink it at all, completely reasonable. Others are going to say drink only a little bit, also completely reasonable. It's a choice matter. You've got to be careful about it, but, you know, knowing some information can be useful. Obviously, I understand if you sit there and listen to all of that and go, I don't know, teachers telling us something's dangerous sounds shifty. Feel free to look up information. I do recommend making sure that you find reputable sources, not just like random forums where someone will tell you that no, it's totally fine. I will often get asked, I forgot about this, what is the cure for a hangover? Cure, um, don't get poisoned in the first place. That's the first cure. Second option, drink lots of water. Part of the things that alcohol does is that your liver, organ in your body, is what processes the alcohol toxin in your blood, takes it out, purifies it, turns it into something else, and then you can get rid of it when you pee. The process uses up a lot of water, so your body ends up being incredibly dehydrated. Also, the toxin ends up damaging some cells along the way, which also causes you to feel sort of that achy, headachy feeling and other things that people always talk about when they talk about a hangover. Drinking a lot of water before the hangover starts can really help, because that means that your body has extra water to work with in order to properly purify the toxins. Okay, so that's a big part. So like, if you were drinking and you find yourself feeling a little bit tipsy, which is one of the effects of alcohol, increased alcohol levels, start drinking water, because that'll mean that you have lots of extra material to work with to purify the poison you already drank. The other thing you can do, keep drinking water the next day. Right? The water is what will help making sure that you can clean everything out, purify everything, put everything back to homeostasis. There's a word from bio class. Basically everything being the way it should be. So that's the main piece of advice. There isn't really any other magic to it. I mean, at the end of the day, you purposefully, or accidentally, I guess, ingested poison. The body's cleaned it out, hopefully. It's going to take time to recover. The more poison you drink, the longer it takes to recover. It's a very simple system. Okay, I know, not very exciting, or I should say very exciting, but certainly not very encouraging. Everyone always wants a magic fix to everything, but turns out there isn't always. All right. Enough about alcohol. Oh, yeah, let's take a look at some examples. So here are some alcohol examples, right, with their names. Let's see if you can draw them. Not nearly as exciting. Neither of these would be ones you can drink, right? That one's pentanol. This one here, how many do we have? What is going on here? We've got a CH3 and then 5 CH2s. Oh, well, 5, and then there's one CH3 sticking off the end, and then there's an OH over here. It's going to be a hexanol. Both of these incredibly dangerous if you were to drink them. There they are. Right? Line diagram, complete structure, whichever one works for you. So hopefully you gave those a shot. Now we're going to move on. This one's not going to be nearly as exciting as alcohol. I'm sure there's never nearly as many questions for this, but let's take a look here. Organic acid contains the carboxyl group, or the COOH, which actually looks like this. Now this R that you see here is sort of a shortcut that organic chemists use. R means the rest of the molecule. So like it could be another C, it could be another 2 C's, right? Whatever else is attached to this. So this is the key functional group, and then here is the rest of it, whatever it is. So this carboxyl is what we call this double bonded O to a C and then a C to another OH. So this is very similar to alcohol, but it's got that double bonded O, so it behaves completely different inside the body. These acids may be represented by the general formula R, blah, but R means the rest of the chain. See? Exactly. Organic acids are weak acids. We haven't really talked about acids a lot. Weak means that they do not react very strongly. They're fairly benign-ish. There's a lot of weak acids that can be dangerous, but like, for example, vinegar can be a weak acid. That's, an example. Replace the E ending of hydrocarbon name with the OIC of the acid. So we get methonic acid. Methanonic acid. There we go. And that's what it would look like if it was the meth version, right? So it's only got one carbon. If I put a second one, it would be ethonic acid. Ethanonic acid. The carboxyl carbon is always the first carbon when we're naming. It's the most interesting thing. Okay? Let's take a look at some examples here. Methanoic acid, we already talked about that one. Ethanonic acid, right? So now instead of being one carbon, there are 2 carbons. What about the next one? Propanonic. Okay, so meth, eth, prop, that's 3. So we should see one more carbon than this one. There it is. Okay? This particular one decided to draw the H separate from the O, even though the others put it together, OH, OH. They're all the same thing. They just drew it a little different in that picture that I found. Esters. Organic acids react with alcohols to remove water, and the reactants form an ester. So this is how we basically go from an alcohol and a carboxylic acid into a ester. So we're building it up. We have our two basic materials, and then when we put the two together, we get our esters. So what do esters do? Why are they important? Esters are responsible for tastes and odors in food. Fats are triesters, 3 esters, made from glycerol, that's an alcohol, and 3 different types of fatty acids. Drugs like aspirin, acetic acid, ethanoic acid, salicylic acid, all our uses for aspirin are all part of aspirin, and they're used to reduce pain, reduce temperatures, and reduce inflammation. So these esters help us to make medicine, to make us feel better, and also to provide taste in other situations. They also help make clothing. Polyester, poly means many in, I believe, Greek. Polyester is a synthetic fabric made from long chains of esters. So we just make really long chains. This is probably polyester if I had to guess, actually. These are made by taking an alcohol of some form and combining it with an organic acid. This is transformed in that process to make this. But again, where did I get the alcohol from? Maybe I fermented some kind of plant material, or maybe I used some original oil from the ground. I could also take oil and rearrange it with some chemistry too, as we discussed earlier on. Adhesives and paints. Ethyl ethanoate or vinyl acetate are both adhesives, glues, and paints that paint colors. So esters are very critical, right? They're right up there with aromatics. Esters are formed through the process known as esterification. Here's another example reaction type that we want to talk about. I'm going to show you this one. This one's got a couple steps. The general reaction for an ester is as follows. Watch the steps here. Okay, this is what happens. Whoa, it's a lot of stuff. What's happening? Okay, this is the carboxylic acid, right? This is the organic acid. This is an alcohol. The H and the OH here, right? Those ones there split off to make water. And then the rest of this stuff combines together, right? So then like this O here attaches here to the C. And that's what makes the ester component. So this guy stays in the same place, and this guy stays in the same place, but this H pops off with this OH. But Mr. C, couldn't it be that this H pops off and this OH stays the same? Yeah, totally. Or sorry, this H pops off, this O stays here, and these two come off? Yeah, totally, but it does the same thing in the end, right? Like, if I take all of this away and this one, right, then I can attach this O by my pinky finger to this C by my thumb. Well, I can also do it like this, and the same thing happens. This O here just attaches to this R over there, right? It doesn't make any difference. At the end of the day, you get some water and you get the ester. Okay, that's the key. The name of an ester is obtained by taking the initial alkyl group from the alcohol and the final word from the acid, then replacing the ic by ate. Okay, so ethanoic acid and ethanol becomes ethyl ethanoate. Okay, let's take a look at this in detail. Okay, so here we go. Okay, here's the alcohol, here's the organic acid. Okay, so this is the acid, this is the ethanoic acid, this is the ethanol. Okay, because there's just the OH right there. This one's got the double bonded O as well. We're going to make water, okay? And then everything else comes together. So that H goes over there, and that OH goes over there. Okay, so that part makes sense. So then we get these two fragments, and then, of course, what do? They combine together. Okay? And then this is called ethyl ethanoate. Why is it ethyl ethanoate? Because this part over here is an ethyl, and this part here is an ethanoate, because there's 2. If there was 3, then it would be a propanoate. If there was 3 on this side, it would be a propyl. Okay? Ethyl ethanoate. So the alcohol gives us the first word, and the organic acid gives us the second word. And then it just depends how long they are. Is it the most complicated functional group to name? Yes, unfortunately. But on the plus side, this is as hard as it gets. This is it. This is it. Okay? All right. Next is polymers. It's pretty short. I'm probably going to film it right away, which means that's it in terms of the organic functional groups. Again, there are many others. You could look into them in great detail, but we saw the basics, right? We saw our alcohols, we saw our carboxylic acids or our organic acids, and we saw our esters. And those are the 3 that I really want you guys to know, because, of course, alcohols are very exciting for everyone. Carboxylic acids or organic acids are interesting, very useful for a lot of things we do, but most importantly, they're useful because they, plus alcohols, make the esters, and those esters are very important. They do so many things for us. But I will leave this here and see you guys next time.